next segment, we're going to go over the latest rumors going around the NHL regarding the Oilers, and Mike and I are going to talk a little bit about the goalies that the Oilers could target come the trade deadline. Jim Matheson is reporting that the Oilers are likely one of many teams with interest in signing KHL star Andrei Kuzmenko. With the recent Russian invasion of the Ukraine, a lot of things are up in the air regarding the KHL postseason, so no idea when Kuzmenko could actually come should he decide to sign with the team in the NHL. Kuzmenko has 20 goals and 33 assists for 53 points in 45 games with SKA St. Petersburg this season. Kuzmenko plays on the left side, so he'd probably be a top 6, top 9 forward for the Oilers. I don't know, what do you think, Mike? Is he a guy you'd be interested in if he's willing to come?
Well, if he's willing to come, why not? He gets to play with the likes of the number one player in the world in Leon Draisaitl and his little brother there, Connor McDavid, with no bottom teeth now. I think who would not want to come and play with the likes of those guys, or a Hyman or a Nugent Hopkins. If it means that it gives us the ability to get rid of Yamamoto, I'm all in.
Yeah, like I said, the Oilers are one of many teams that are probably interested in him, so it could be nothing. He might decide to stay in the KHL too, so we'll see what happens there, but it's a possibility for the Oilers. David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period is reporting that the Oilers have interest in Buffalo Sabres defenseman Robert Hägg. Hägg has 1 goal and 5 assists for 6 points in 40 games this year. Hägg has a $1.6 million cap hit and is a UFA at the end of the year. He's a left shot D and would slot in on the Oilers' third pairing. I think if the Oilers did this, it would be purely for depth, and I personally think it would be kind of redundant. It can't hurt, but I think the Oilers have some more pressing needs. Like we said in the last segment, I think they should be focusing on top 4 right shot D and goaltending, so yeah, it couldn't hurt to grab Robert Hägg, but I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
I don't know. Are you going to take Niemelainen out of the picture? Yeah. Right? Is he an upgrade on Niemelainen? Niemelainen already has 1 assist, and he's only played 8 NHL games. Yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to defense, I really could give a shit about the points, right? I want these guys to play defense. Yeah. We have enough firepower in our forward core that we don't need to rely on our defense to score goals. Hey, when it happens, great. We'll take it when it happens. But, I don't think it's a fundamental need on this team. Our fundamental need is to be good in our own zone, lay in the body, be tougher to play against, be able to protect our goaltender, protect each other, right? So, to me, it would just be redundant, like you were saying. Yeah. And you have the youthful movement in Niemelainen, who's not, as old as Hägg, doesn't have the cap hit like Hägg would have as well. And then, what would you need to give up? Is it worth a pick to kind of go after the exact same thing you already have? So, it is what it is. Like you said, maybe it's depth, but it just doesn't make sense to me. But then again, it's probably something Holland will do then, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, we'll see. It's redundant. I think the Oilers have enough guys that can play towards the bottom of the lineup for the defense. So concentrate on top 4 right shot D. Concentrate on goaltending. Yeah, if you want to get him, if it's extremely low cost, it doesn't hurt. I'm like, oh my god, they got Robert Hägg. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. So let's kind of move on to the goaltending. So as we said in our last segment, Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen come back with a strong weekend, but for me, that doesn't solve anything. The Oilers still need to be focusing on bringing in a goaltender. Over the past few days, I've talked a lot about goaltender Anton Forsberg with the Ottawa Senators. I'm really high on him. He's a UFA at the end of the year, $900,000 cap hit. If you can move out Koskinen or Smith, you bring Forsberg back, you've got extra cap space to go after somebody else. Anton Forsberg has better overall numbers than both Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, so he's an upgrade on both of them. Plus, as I said with Forsberg, he's a UFA, so you aren't tied to him going forward. If you want to go in a new direction in the summer, Forsberg's off the books. You can bring in a new goaltender, go with that goaltender in Skinner, if you can get rid of Mike Smith. But Mike Smith is signed for next year, still at $2.2 million, so I don't know. I looked at deals that we could maybe move out both Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen at the deadline. Highly unlikely. I know that's kind of a dream fantasy type thing, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on Anton Forsberg, Mike?
I don't think it's a dream fantasy. I really do think that if it wasn't Holland, that there is a potential to move out both goaltenders. You've got Stuart Skinner that's sitting down there in the AHL waiting to get his shot. Now, is Anton Forsberg the person that I think that can, lead us into the second or third round of the postseason this year? Maybe, maybe not. The nice thing I like about him is the fact that he was an Oiler last year and they just gave him up on waivers for nothing, right? He went and jumped around 3 different places. It's like, if we only would have known that he was what he was. But unfortunately, like we've said, previous to the fact that I think Tippett had a really big bend on Holland's ear in the fact of who he wanted to be on the team and what kind of veteran presence he wanted to have on the team. Plus his bestie it was a goaltender that has basically traveled the world with Dave Tippett in Mike Smith. I think if you could possibly, find a way to move up Mike Smith, unfortunately, I think you would even have to find a dance partner like, Arizona, where he's from. I think there's an outside shot. Do you get rid of Koskinen? Who knows? But the nice thing is that Koskinen is no longer on the books as of this year. So regardless of what you do, I think you have to do something, whether it's move out Mike Smith and run with Skinner and Koskinen and just, see if you can buy yourself a couple rounds with those 2 goaltenders. I think it's possible, with the way that Woodcroft is really making this team and really changing the focus where it's not just certain person orientated. They're really working to encompass it as a whole team.
I mean, Mike Smith is the one that's on contract for next year, so maybe Mike Smith should be the focus to move out. And like you said, go with Koskinen and Skinner. If Koskinen and Skinner still aren't working, then maybe just before the trade deadline, you bring in another goaltender. Yeah. Maybe just try and put a draft pick with Mike Smith, because you can get him off the books. Then you've got a ton of options for next year. You have Skinner signed at a cheap cap hit, $750K, so you can spend a bit more on another goaltender that you want to bring in.
Well, plus, isn't there going to be more options come the offseason for goaltenders?
Well, of course, yeah.
Because that's a lot of the things that I've been reading and I've been hearing is the fact that right now everybody knows that the Oilers are in desperate need of a goaltender and a possible, top 4 defenseman. So, can we buffer through and make it and have the team running on all cylinders, and the fact that, once we get closer to the postseason, because I know we're going to make the playoffs, and that's they're playing well enough now, and if they keep going on this trajectory, I can't see them missing the playoffs. But then you get the likes of Jesse Puljujarvi back, Cassian back, and hopefully maybe he's a little bit, harder on the puck. You get Yamo back, you get Nuge back. I'd love to see what this team could look like under Woodcroft and Manson. 100% rolling, 100% healthy, and moving forward that way.
Yeah, just to close out this goalie segment, I know a lot of people are really interested in Ville Husso. So if the Oilers were to wait till the summertime, I don't think St. Louis is willing to move him before the trade deadline, because they're going to want to go into the postseason with both Bennington and Husso, 2 strong goaltenders. Why would you weaken yourself going into the playoffs? But he could be a guy, he's a UFA, the Oilers could target him in the summer. How about a tandem of Ville Husso and Stuart Skinner?
Or in that regard is that maybe St. Louis has every want and desire to keep him, but maybe it makes a Jordan Bennington that's available and up for grabs. Who knows how it's going to be, but I think that there's going to be a lot more options come in the off season as far as a goaltender is concerned. But if you could do something now, great. I think it's looking more like we were saying, I think, is if you can move Mike Smith out and that contract for next year out, I think that is more of what would be in need, because I really do think a tandem of Koskinen and Skinner could, steal you a few games in the postseason. It can't be any worse. I tell you, I just don't want to go into the postseason with Mike Smith as our number 1, because we've seen what he could do, which is basically nothing the last 2 years in the postseason.
Yeah. No, if this team goes into the playoffs with Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, they're going to be out in the first round. They might win a few of the games, but they're going to be out in 6 or 7 at most. So that's why I think they should try and bring in an Anton Forsberg, maybe a Braden Holtby, a goaltender with an expiring contract. I don't think this team is going to win the Stanley Cup, but it'd be nice if they can get in the playoffs, do some damage, get some experience, possibly win a round, possibly win 2 rounds. If they can get a goalie that can help them do that, I think they should definitely go for that, and maybe they can address the goaltending to a larger extent in the summertime.
Agreed. Yeah.